Hey guys, this is Chris from Rekkid Talk. So we're doing another episode of I Buy Old Rekkids. I buy old 7-inch Rekkids, and you're going to see in this video a lot of I'm not all that disciplined in buying 7-inch Rekkids when they are cheap. And so our records were bought in the town of Clarksville. Some stuff are blind buy, some stuff not. And so first, before I got to Clarksville, the day I was making this trip, I stopped in an antique store in a small town on the way. And so I'd never been to this antique store before. It was kind of one of those messy, junky sort of places. And I did find there was like an old record player, some old albums. They were all like kind of moldy and like the usual stuff that nobody wants to buy. There were some singles. They were all beat to hell. It looked like they'd probably been in a poorly maintained jukebox and then stored badly. But then there was a metal box, the kind of box that you use to hold 7-inch records. I looked inside and there were some singles that were actually in decent shape. There was a Led Zeppelin Whole Lot of Love. There was a Monkees record in there. It wasn't Last Train to Clarksville. I think it was Daydream Believer. A King Floyd Soul. There was a couple others. There was about 4 or 5 singles that were in decent shape that I was thinking about buying. Now there weren't any prices marked on these, so I uh, went up to find out how much these records were. And so the two employees were chatting with somebody else, and they were clearly in no rush to quit chatting. And so I stand there for like 10 minutes, and then they finally get the idea that, hey, maybe this guy wants to buy something. And so I said, yeah, how much are these records? And the lady's looking, and clearly she has absolutely no idea how much these records are priced at. Maybe nobody has ever tried to buy records there. So I could tell she's kind of thinking, what's the largest number I can say and this guy will buy the records? And she says $6 each. That was too much. I didn't buy them, so don't have those to show you. Did make it to Clarksville. There was an outdoor flea market. I was there on a Saturday. But by the outdoor flea market, there are also about 3 or 4 of those like indoor flea market store sort of places, and I was checking them out. Um, One of the places, so I'm going through like there's bins of albums. It's the usual crap, but the guy who works there notices me flipping through them, and he says, they're in that booth back there. There's a blue tub full of 45s. If you're interested in 45, so yeah, I am, and I actually dug some out of there. So here's the first one that I dug out, and there's an interesting story that I didn't even know at the time I bought this. The Man on Page 602 by Zoot Fenster. So this is country music from 1975. The flip side is called Vinegar in My Wine. And so I bought it just because it looked cool, and they were 50 cents each. But it actually turned out that the man on page 602 was the man on page 602 of the Sears catalog. And apparently there was a big controversy in 1975 because page 602, they were selling men's underwear. And so there was a model modeling a pair of boxer shorts and a t-shirt. And the picture looked like his penis was very long and coming out the leg of his boxer shorts. Now, really, there was I seen the picture online, and it's kind of like, what? It was like there was like some sort of printing flaw. There was like something on the plate, so maybe his dick wasn't really hanging out of his boxer shorts. But apparently, this was a big controversy because we're a puritanical country and all of that. And then this guy Zoot Fenster, which was the pseudonym, wrote a country song about it, and it was apparently a country hit in 1975. So about the underwear model with big junk. Um, we have this D. Mullins record, War Baby, another sort of blind buy. This is country music from 1967. The War Baby was sort of this song about kids that had been born during World War II. I kind of looked up this guy. Apparently, wasn't really on this record, but apparently he's had some records in that time period that were kind of a mix of country and psych, which sounds kind of cool. They didn't really go anywhere. I bought these because they were on the Playboy Records label. Hamilton, Joe, Frank, and Reynolds. So we've got winners and losers, and So Good at Loving You. So this is sort of soft rock from like 1975. Maybe I shouldn't have bought those, but I did. Now I remember this one when I was a kid, and so this is like a J.J. Slambo sort of record. Rick Dees and his cast of idiots, Disco Duck. And so that was, of course, a comedy record, sort of a parody of disco songs. Rick Dees was sort of a well known DJ at the time, if you're a little bit younger and don't remember that. Freddie Fender, Wasted Days and Wasted Nights. I got it on a single. Sometimes I find this album and I would get it, but the albums always beat the hell. It's just as well just to have the single. I did find this Desmond Decker single. You can get it if you really want on the Uni label rather than Trojan. It's got a hole drilled through it, so maybe it was promo from 1970. We got The Sweet with Little Willie. Flip side's called Man from Mecca, so some glam from about 72. Casey and the Sunshine Band, That's the Way I Like It, on TK Records for some 75. We got some Ohio Players, Love Roller Coaster from 1975 as well. And then the place next door, these were a little bit more expensive, so I only got two of them there. I got this Arthur, The Crazy World of Arthur Brown. Oh, let me show Fire. And so he was from the late 60s, a huge showman. He had this helmet that there would be like fire would be shooting out of it, and the wax would melt on him and burn him. Very crazy. And then we've got the Dutch band The Shocking Blue with Venus, which was, if you're my age, you probably know it from the Bananarama cover. So that was the stuff I got in Clarksville. And then some stuff I got locally, which I'm going to roll into this video as well. A bunch of country music blind buys. And so sometimes I blind buy like punk and indie rock on Discogs because I don't really find it locally very often at all. But trying to take a chance on some country. And frankly, a lot of times when you take a chance on the country, it just ends up being people trying to do the styles of the mainstream country styles that I really don't like, and not as well as the famous people. But like we got Jed Records, Cotton County by Jimmy Smart, from the looks of things, from 1973. This next one has kind of a weird story behind it. So we have this A Poor Man's Rose by Bunny Mills on the Bun Jack label. Realities Hit Me Again. So the Bun Jack label. So this single wasn't even on Discogs. It came out maybe in 1984 or so. So anyway, Bunny Mills was this lady from Shreveport. She was born sometime in the 1930s. Was kind of a local country singer, sort of maybe had a bit of a following regionally, but never really much outside of that area. Bun Jack was sort of, I guess, a label that her and her husband at the time, who I guess his name was Jack, had set up. But then there's this sordid story of eventually they got divorced, and she ended up in a romantic relationship with a guy who was like 20, 25 years younger than her. That's not the sordid part. The sordid part was that this guy was a serial murderer. Didn't kill her, but yeah. So then probably the best of the country music blind buys, this guy Loney Hutchins with this song Mountain Eyes from 1985. So it's sort of bluegrassy, sort of country ballady on the Appalachian record company. And so the story on him was that he had been he was mostly known as a songwriter rather than a performer. He had a stint in the 70s doing some songwriting for Johnny Cash. This is a pretty cool song. probably be better if somebody who is maybe a bit more dynamic of a performer did it. But it was definitely the best song of that bunch. This next bunch, I bought all three of these. So we got this GBS or GBZ label. And so we've got Watermelon Time in Georgia, which was known as a Lefty Frizzell song performed by this guy, Kenny Wilson, the singing truck driver. So, then I got a couple other ones on that label as well that were bought mostly because they had good stereotypical country song names. So we got this song, Ernie Bivens the Third. We've got, what is it, Walking in My Dreams. And these are both from like the late 80s. And then Almost Jack Daniels Drowned. I guess that's a drinking song. If a broken heart could kill, afraid to stir the ashes. So Ernie seems pretty bummed out. And then the last ones, there's this band called the Wagoneers. And these are both sort of these promos that obviously they're the record label. A&M Records apparently had some thoughts for them. A couple of songs from like 1988. I Want to Know Her Again and Help Me Get Over Her. And it's sort of along the lines of like, it's not as good as Dwight Yoakam, but it's sort of that style of music. They were sort of when people trying to do sort of like the traditional country revival stuff that was going on. That and the Loney Hutchins are probably the best of those country music blind buys. And of course, the man on page 602, the underwear model with the big dick, and some Rick D's and all kinds of other stupid stuff because I'm not very disciplined when the singles are cheap.